There's a moment you don't talk about. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's normal now. You sit there scrolling, not searching, just escaping. The room's quiet. Your body's tired. You're not sad. You're not happy. You're just gone. And maybe that's the part no one sees, that you've slowly slipped out of your own life. Not all at once. Not in some big, breaking moment. Just a quiet erosion, like sand slipping through your fingers. You do everything right. You show up. You work. You nod. You laugh. You keep the machine moving. But there's a hollow space under it all. A low ache you can't explain. Like the lights are on, but no one's home inside. You feel it when the noise dies down, when the dopamine wears off, when the last notification fades, and you're left alone with you. But the thing is, you don't feel like you anymore. You feel like someone who's been on autopilot for years. Someone who got so good at playing the role, they forgot they were acting. That's not failure. That's not weakness. That's what happens when a boy learns to survive by disappearing. No one ever taught you how to stay present in your own skin. They just rewarded you when you performed. They clapped when you achieved. They nodded when you hid your pain like a man's supposed to. So you learned early, if I want to be loved, I need to be impressive. If I want to be safe, I need to be useful. If I want to be accepted, I need to disappear just enough to not make anyone uncomfortable. And now, you're successful. You're strong. You're respected. But you're not home. That emptiness you feel, it didn't start last week. It's been growing for years. It began the moment you realized being yourself wasn't enough. You were still a boy, but you already understood the rules. Be easy. Be helpful. Be strong. Don't be a burden. And so you adapted. Not because you were weak, but because you were brilliant. You saw what made others happy. You felt what they didn't say. You noticed the tension behind their smiles and adjusted yourself to ease it. That's not just intelligence. That's survival. You became who they needed before they even asked. And it worked. They loved you, or at least they loved the version of you they saw. But quietly you began to disappear. Your own feelings? Muted. Your needs? Delayed. Your voice? Polished to please. You stopped asking, "What do I want?" and started asking, "What will keep the peace? What will keep me safe? What will make them proud of me?" And now here you are, a man who's achieved so much, but still doesn't know if it's what he wanted. Because no one ever told you that being everything for everyone else often means being nothing to yourself. You didn't lose yourself. You buried yourself. And the worst part is, the world praised you for it. Somewhere along the way, you stopped being a person and started becoming a performance. It didn't happen in one moment. It happened slowly. Every time you chose peace over honesty. Every time you smiled through discomfort. Every time you shaped yourself to be accepted. Instead of asking if you even accepted you, you became the good son, the impressive student, the reliable friend, the man who could carry it all. And it worked. People liked you. They trusted you. They leaned on you, but what they were leaning on wasn't you. It was the version of you that never made them uncomfortable. You were never taught how to show up as yourself. You were taught how to be useful, how to be impressive, how to earn your place by being easy to be around. So you started auditioning in every room, every relationship, every moment. You smiled when you were exhausted. You stayed quiet when you wanted to scream. You said yes when your whole body was screaming no, because that's what the world applauded. That's what felt safe. But now, maybe for the first time, you're starting to feel the cost of it. You wake up in a life that looks good on paper, but doesn't feel like it belongs to you. You've kept the mask on for so long, you forgot it was ever a mask. Carl Jung called it the persona, the identity we build to survive in a world that doesn't know how to hold our realness. And it's not a lie. It's not fake. It's a version of you that served a purpose, protected you. But now, it's choking you, because you've outgrown the role, because your soul can't breathe in a costume. And now you feel it, that deep, aching question that's hard to say out loud. Who am I? If I'm not who I've always been for them, you're not broken. You're waking up. There's a kind of grief no one prepares you for, the grief of realizing you've lived a life that wasn't yours. Not because you were forced, but because you adapted too well. You became what the world rewarded. Polite, capable, predictable, strong. But under all of that, there was something else. Something soft, something wild, something real. And you learned, sometimes without words, that realness was too much, too messy, too intense, too inconvenient. So you hid it, quietly, skillfully. You locked away your anger because it made people uncomfortable. You buried your sadness because it made you look weak. You suppressed your needs because they made you feel like a burden. And little by little, you became an expert in being palatable. But here's the truth no one tells the gifted, sensitive, brilliant child. When you suppress what makes you real, you start to feel unreal. You wake up in the morning and go through the motions, but something's missing. You smile, but you don't feel joy. You rest, but you don't feel peace. You succeed, but it doesn't feel like your success. It's not burnout. It's not laziness. It's not a lack of discipline. It's the weight of everything you've carried, the weight of every version of yourself you built, just to be acceptable. And maybe now, for the first time, you're starting to feel what you've spent years avoiding. Not because you're weaker now, but because you're stronger than you've ever been. Strong enough to stop pretending. Strong enough to stop performing. Strong enough to feel. Carl Jung believed that the parts of ourselves we exile, our anger, our grief, our desire, our softness, don't disappear. They wait. He called it the shadow. Not evil, not broken, just forgotten. And now the shadow is knocking, not to haunt you, but to return you to wholeness. Most men don't realize it, but the shadow doesn't just hide in your darkness. It hides in your achievements, your charm, your ability to keep everything together. You think you've moved on from your past, but it's still living in the way you react to silence, to conflict, to love. It shows up in the way you flinch at softness, in the way you tense up when someone really sees you, in how you chase people who won't stay, and push away the ones who might. You don't mean to do it. You don't even notice it half the time. But that's the thing about unprocessed pain. It doesn't go away. It just goes underground. And once it's buried, it runs the show. You say you're fine. You're always fine. Because being fine means no one looks too closely. And you've built a life around that. A life where you're respected, productive, doing well. But deep down, you know something's off. You feel it when you're alone. That ache in your chest. That restlessness you can't explain. That voice inside you that whispers, this can't be it. You've spent so long trying to become a man that no one else had to worry about. You forgot how to be a man you could feel proud of. Not proud because you achieved something, but because you came home to yourself. And coming home, that's not always beautiful. Sometimes it means sitting in the wreckage of who you pretended to be. Sometimes it means grieving the years you lost to people-pleasing and perfectionism. Sometimes it means holding the younger version of yourself, who never got to feel safe just being human. You weren't born disconnected. You were trained to disconnect. Not maliciously, not intentionally, but because the people around you were disconnected too. They didn't know how to hold you, so you learned to hold everything yourself. That's not weakness. That's brilliance. But it's also a burden. And it's okay to want to put it down now. You don't have to carry the entire world to prove your worth. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to justify softness. You just have to be willing to feel again. And that is the beginning of becoming whole. There's a reason you've kept yourself so busy. Because slowing down means feeling. And feeling means facing everything you've buried. The truth is, most men aren't addicted to success. They're addicted to distraction, to motion, to staying one step ahead of the silence. Because in the silence, something old begins to stir. The boy who was told his feelings were too much. The boy who learned not to cry, not to ask, not to need. He never really left. He just got quiet. And you built your whole life around making sure he never had a reason to speak again. But now he's knocking. In the form of exhaustion. In your short temper. In that growing sense of disconnection that no amount of achievement seems to fix. You see, when you were young, you thought being strong meant not needing anyone. That independence was maturity. That asking for help was weakness. But that wasn't strength. That was fear dressed up as control. Hyperindependence isn't a badge of honor. It's a trauma response. It says, I'd rather suffer alone than risk being let down again. I'd rather be silent than be shamed for feeling. I'll just handle it. Because no one else ever did. And maybe they didn't. Maybe the people who were supposed to protect you were too distracted, too wounded, or too emotionally unavailable to notice your pain. So you became the protector, the one who never needed, the one who held it all, and people admired you for it. They still do, but no one offers support to the man who seems to need nothing. No one checks on the one who's always fine. And now you're in this strange place, strong on the outside, starving on the inside. Carl Jung said, where love rules, there is no will to power. But most men don't live under love. They live under performance, under pressure, under silence. But love, real love, starts when you stop performing. When you let someone see behind the mask. When you allow yourself to be held without proving you deserve it. You were never meant to carry it all. You were meant to feel it all. But feel it in connection, not in isolation. And that, brother, that is the beginning of healing. You've carried yourself for so long. You forgot what it feels like to be carried. You forgot what it's like to be listened to without being fixed, to be seen without being sized up, to be held without needing to hold everything together. That kind of connection, you might not even believe it exists anymore, because somewhere along the way, you stopped expecting it. You started lowering the bar, not just for others, but for life. You told yourself, this is just how it is. You work. You push. You cope. You stopped dreaming. Stopped feeling. Stopped hoping for more. Because hope requires vulnerability. And you weren't sure you could survive being let down again. But the deeper truth is this. You've never actually met your real self. You've only met the version of you that got rewarded. The one who could function. The one who kept it all together. But the part of you that didn't perform? The part of you that wasn't productive? The part that just wanted to be? He's still waiting. He's the one who used to feel wonder. Who used to play without needing a reason. Who used to cry when it hurt, and didn't apologize for it. He's the one you left behind. When you learned this world only made space for half of you. And now, he's resurfacing. Not as weakness. Not as regression. But as a reminder that numbness is not peace, that coping is not living, that silence is not healing. You've done everything you were told would make you enough. You achieved. You endured. You adapted. But now you're here, with everything you thought you needed, and a question echoing through your body. Why do I still feel like something's missing? That feeling isn't failure. It's a message, a quiet voice saying, come back, not to who you were expected to be, but to who you were before the world told you to change. The hardest part isn't waking up to the truth. It's realizing how long you've been asleep. How many years you spent building a life on top of a silence. How many moments you lost trying to be the man they needed, instead of the one you actually are. That grief, it sneaks in, not loudly, not all at once. Comes when you're driving home and forget where you were going. When someone asks how you are, and you almost say, I don't know. When you sit in a room full of people, and feel completely alone. Because the disconnection didn't start yesterday. It started the moment you learned to trade your truth for belonging. And now the trade feels hollow. You can't keep performing your way into peace. You can't hustle your way into wholeness. Carl Jung said, healing doesn't come from adding more. It comes from removing what is not you. And that's what you're starting to feel now. Not the need to become something new, but the quiet urge to strip it all away. The titles, the roles, the expectations, even the mask you forgot you were wearing. And underneath all of it, there's someone real, someone soft, someone raw but alive. He's not polished. He's not always in control. He's not the version of you that gets praised in public. But he's true, and he's been waiting, not for success, not for perfection, but for presence. The kind of presence that says, I'm not here to perform anymore. I'm here to feel. I'm here to heal. That kind of honesty scares people, but it sets you free. Because finally you stop asking, what do they need me to be? And start asking, what have I been denying in myself just to survive? The answer won't always be pretty, but it will be real. And real is where healing begins. There's a moment every man reaches. Not dramatic, not loud, just a quiet reckoning. He looks around at his life, the job, the car, the habits, the roles, and he realizes, I built all this, and I still feel empty. That moment doesn't mean you failed. It means you're finally telling the truth. You did everything they said would make you feel whole. You chased success. You stayed strong. You held it all together. You survived. But you didn't feel. Because somewhere in all the surviving, you forgot how to live as you. You became a man of function, not feeling. A man of image, not intimacy. And now, you're face to face with the one person you've spent years avoiding, yourself. And maybe that's why it's so hard to slow down. Because when the noise stops, the real questions begin. Who am I without the performance? Who am I if I stop achieving? What's left of me when I'm no longer trying to earn my place in the world? Most men never ask. They just keep going. Keep grinding. Keep distracting themselves until the numbness feels normal. But you're asking now. You're feeling something stir. It might feel like anxiety, or sadness, or rage, but underneath it all, it's grief. Grief for the boy who never got to just be. Grief for the man who became everything to everyone, and forgot himself in the process. Gabor Mate talks about this, how addiction isn't about substances or screens or work. It's about escape. It's about the pain of being disconnected from the self, and the desperate craving for relief. That's what this is. Not a crisis, a call. Your soul is tired of the act. It's asking for something real, not more doing, not more fixing, but more truth. And that truth, it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be yours. So here you are. After all the years of running, performing, adjusting, you've finally stopped. Not because you've given up, but because you're tired of giving yourself away. And maybe for the first time, you're ready to ask the real question. What would it feel like to come home to myself? Not the version of you that gets applause. Not the one who checks every box. But the version that was buried. The one who used to laugh without checking the room. Who felt things fully and didn't apologize for being sensitive, messy, wild, alive. That part of you never died. He just got quiet. He learned early on. The world only wants the part of me that's useful. So he stopped showing the rest. But now, you're old enough to choose differently. You're strong enough to feel what you've been running from. You're wise enough to know that survival is not the same as living. And you're brave enough to see that the mask, the one that earned love, respect, safety, isn't needed anymore. You're not here to prove anything. You're here to remember who you were. Before the shame, before the silence, before you learned to perform instead of exist. This world doesn't need another perfect man. It needs you, the one who's been underneath all along. Not polished, not performing, just real. You're not broken, you're buried. And the digging, the grieving, the reclaiming, it all leads here, to the man you were always meant to be. Not a role, not a mask, but a presence. One that breathes, one that feels, one that no longer asks, what do they want from me? But instead whispers, what does my soul remember about me that I've forgotten? And in that remembering, you become whole again. Not by becoming someone new, but by finally being you.